In this presentation, we're going to create a summary balance sheet. Let's zoom into it with Xero. Here we are in the Xero Demo Company dashboard. We're going to be creating a summary balance sheet. Now, I just want to point out as we do this, if we go to the accounting dropdown first and then we go to the reports and just check out the kind of reports we have down here, you'll note that there's not like a real extensive list of reports that are in, say, the financial statements, right? You got pretty much the standard reports here. And in other words, you don't have a lot of variance on the balance sheet, as you might see, like in QuickBooks. If you looked at QuickBooks, if we do the comparison in QuickBooks, then you might see other types of balance sheet reports, like a summary report, maybe a comparative report, and different kind of balance sheet reports, which again are kind of like the standard reports. Now, those reports that are there typically are reports that you could have generated or created basically from the standard balance sheet type report. They're variants of obviously the balance sheet report. So there's pros and cons to having that in place, because those kind of standard reports that are always in the standard section can kind of muddy up the standard section, because now you got a lot of different reports. It looks a bit more confusing. You may or may not need those reports. However, you can kind of look at the most common or formats of those reports as you go through them. Here, we don't have as many of those reports. It's going to be cleaner to look at here. However, if you want to generate those reports, then you need to make them. So here we're going to make those reports, and then we can customize those reports however we want to put them, and then we can save them, say, in the custom area. So that's kind of just a difference as we go through this. There might be fewer reports in here than, let's say, if I'm comparing this to QuickBooks. QuickBooks might have more reports in it that are customized, but many of those reports are basically variants of the standard reports, the financial statements. So anything that's kind of a variant of an income statement or balance sheet, we could basically kind of create. And that's what we'll do here. And then once we create them, we could save them as custom reports. All right, so let's do this. We're going to create basically a summary balance sheet report. And we're going to be going to the accounting dropdown, and we'll open up then our balance sheet. I'm going to open up the balance sheet. When it opens, I'm going to right click on the tab up top and duplicate that tab. So I'll right click and duplicate it, just in case we need to bounce back over to the left and open anything up over there. Then I also like, if I'm going to be manipulating a report, to always have the standard balance sheet open so I can see what I did and compare that to what it was before I did whatever it is that I did. So I'm going to right click on it again and duplicate it again. So the one to the right is going to be the one I'm not going to mess up or mess with or do anything to. And the one to the left is going to be where I can jump into anything else that may be needed as I go. So we're going to be in this balance sheet. We're as of December 31st, 2019. Now you'll note, this is there's not a lot of accounts going on here. So we don't have a lot to worry. I mean, it's pretty summarized already because there's not a lot going on with it, right? But you do see that there's a lot of subcategories within it. So we may want to say one way to summarize this is there's a couple different ways we can think of a summary kind of balance sheet. I'm going to hold down Control and scroll up a little bit to the 125. We might say, hey, you know what? I don't need these subcategories like cash. Such as the current assets possibly, or the fixed assets. Those are just muddying things up. Maybe I just want a list of my assets, right? I just want a list of the assets. I don't need these subcategories in there. And that'll save some space. It'll make it a little bit easier to read. That's one way we could save this up. We can say, I don't need the current liabilities, and I just want the liabilities in equity, not the current liabilities. We could take out, in other words, some of those subtotals. So that's one way we can kind of summarize the data. The other way we could think about summarizing the data is we could say, well, I don't need the detail that's included in here. Maybe I just want to see total current assets, and that's it, right? I don't need to see the types of current assets inside it. Maybe I just want to see fixed assets as a total. Maybe I just want to see the current liabilities. So maybe you want, or maybe I want, multiple of those reports. So the idea I would have with making a summary report, whenever you give a report to somebody else, is basically try to give them less information at first, right? You want to kind of them not to be overwhelmed. You don't want them to just shut off. And so you say, hey, here's the summary report. And once they want more information than that, then you give them the more detailed report. So that's how I would think about, moving forward with the reports. Also note, as you create these reports, you might use kind of the balance sheet and the income statement are the two reports you bounce back and forth to oftentimes when you're reviewing things. So you might then have the standard balance sheet giving you more detail, like a lot of different accounts. If you're someone that likes to have a lot of detail in your accounting, a lot of different line items, a lot of different accounts on the actual balance sheet, then you might, and you might even have accounts, as we'll see when we go forward, like loan accounts with different loan numbers on there or something like that. you might actually have accounts like that with different loan numbers and stuff so that you can go back and forth and get that detail. But when you go to the balance sheet, you might want to and give it to somebody else, then you might want to summarize or compact that information, kind of like you would with sub accounts on QuickBooks, and make a summary report. Here, you just customize the report. You just say, I'm just going to summarize those accounts into a summary data. So just the two kind of things you want to keep in mind when you bounce back and forth from the balance sheet and the income statement back to the data input. It can be useful to list things out, such as different checking accounts, possibly even having like checking numbers on the accounts and whatnot, so you could see the detail, and then maybe condense that information when you report the information to somebody else by using this customization format. You also want to think about how you can customize things in a simplified way and then add more detail, and hopefully get people, whoever you're engaging with, to ask more questions, to want to continue to engage, to get to that more detailed, rather than overwhelming someone with a lot of detail at first. All right, so how are we gonna do this? We're gonna go to the layout tab on the bottom. And so like I say, one way to shorten this out is to say, well, what if I just say, I just want this as bare bones as possible? One way is to just use the groupings. I can say, I'm just gonna condense the current assets, the fixed assets, the long-term assets, right? I'm just gonna hit these little triangles and condense the current liabilities and the long-term liabilities, and just put all the equity into one account, and that's it. That's one kind of summary balance sheet format we can have. If I was to go back into this and see what happens with it, so there it is. So that's pretty condensed, right? So we could say, here's the assets, here's the current assets, the fixed assets, the current liabilities. That's it. And then you could see how you could present this to somebody, and they might say, well, that's great. I'd like some more information about the current assets and all right. And then we'll give them the full, the full balance sheet, which may have made some eyes roll over if we had done that at the beginning. So that's one way we could do it. The other way we could do it is we could say, hey, the subcategories are the things that are adding too much detail. I don't need the subcategories possibly. So let's do that way. I can open all the subcategories back up. So I'm going to make all the triangles so they're pointed down again. All the triangles are pointed down pointing triangles. And then I'm just going to remove. Maybe I don't want the current assets altogether. I just want to remove that category. So I can select that category and then simply trash it. So I'm going to go up here and trash it. Don't worry, because it's not doing this to the overall, balance sheet normal report. This is just going to, you could still open up another balance sheet and it'll be back. So we're going to do that. And then you may want to, remove the cash, or with the cash, maybe I just want that on one line item. So the cash, I like the subcategory, but I just want to show one line item there to have a summary report. I don't want the other breakout of fixed assets. I don't want that. I just want it to list the assets in accounts. So I'm going to say trash that one. Trash the subcategory, please. And then I'm going to go down and do the same thing for the long-term assets. Would you please trash that triangle category? And then on the liabilities, I don't want to trash the liabilities, right? But I do want to trash, I didn't open up these ones. I do want to trash the current liabilities. I don't need that one. I'm going to trash that. And it says it's got this problem with this thing happening, but I'm okay with that, I think. So I'm going to go proceed anyways. So there we have it. And then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do it for the long-term liabilities. Trash that. Obviously, there's more detail here because we're not using all these accounts. And then the equity, I want all the equity just to list, so that we want the equity section. So now we just have this. That looks good. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Bouncing back over. And this is another format that we can use basically for the summary, just simply getting rid of a lot of the subcategories that we have in there. So again, so I would think of this kind of summary as summarizing any kind of things that we're using as kind of sub-account kind of transactions, closing those triangles up as we did with the cash accounts, and then removing all the subgroupings, just having the major three groups of the balance sheet being assets, liabilities, and equity, listing the accounts underneath them. So I'm not breaking out, equipments and PP&E. I'm not breaking that out. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to some people, right? So I don't need the subcategory. And this will fit more easily on one page if you have a long balance sheet report, if you remove the subcategories and group together, or if you remove like the categories and then group together any subcategories. So this is what I'm going to call it, and then I'm going to save it up top. I'm just going to call this a summary balance sheet. So that's one format of a summary balance sheet. And again, just note that you can imagine multiple different variants that you can have on this, right? That's why when you have a default summary balance sheet, that if Xero was to just make one and say, hey, here's a summary balance sheet, It might not be, it might not be the way you would imagine the summary balance sheet, and you can change that. And like QuickBooks software does that too. They give you a default summary, and you could change it if you want. But just note that a summary balance sheet, there is no real just set summary balance sheet. There's different ways that you can summarize the information in a summary balance sheet. You might have multiple different summary balance sheets that you're going to be putting together in different formats depending on who you give that information to. So once you have this, you could customize this. We're not going to customize it now. We'll talk about how to customize in a future presentation, how to save the report and customize it so that you can go back and find the changes without having to change them each time. What we will do here is print this report as we did last time. We're going to save all the balance sheet reports as if we're going to give all these balance sheet reports to someone like a supervisor or a customer or a client or whatever. So we're going to go ahead and save it. A couple of ways we can do that. How can we do that? We're going to export it. Export it as a PDF. So remember, if we're going to print it, Xero basically thinks of it, hey, export it as a PDF and then print it. That's how Xero thinks of it. So, and which I'm kind of okay with that. At first I thought it was a little weird not to have a printing button, but I'm kind of liking it now. And then I can go into here, and I'm just going to be pulling this in to the folder I want to have it in. I'm going to view this as large icons now. I'm going to rename the tab over here. I'm going to right click and rename it. And I'm going to call this a summary balance sheet. So there we have that. So, and then again, if I wanted to give this to someone, I would obviously simply open it up. And if I want to print it out, then I can print it out from there. All right. And then we're also going to export it as Excel. And then I'm going to add it to this other Excel worksheet so that we have two reports on the one Excel worksheet, which is obviously really exciting. So I'm going to put the Excel document here. Now, I'm not going to save it to our folder. I'm just going to open it up because what I want to do is just take the information in it and then save that to the other Excel sheet that we set up last time in a previous presentation. So then I'm going to enable the editing up top. So there's that. I'm going to put this on the screen so you can see it. Now, before I edit anything, I'm just going to copy the whole thing and put it where I want it to be, which is on that other Excel sheet in a new tab. So I can copy the whole thing by selecting the little icon up top, or anywhere up here I can hit Control A, right click and copy. Right click, it's not letting me do it. I go here, I'm going to say Control C. Control C will do it. It'll do it one way or the other. And then we're going to go back up top, and then I'm going to have the plus button down here, and then I'm going to double click on the tab and call this the summary balance. Let's just call it balance sheet. And then I'm going to put this up in A1. If you put it anywhere else, remember it's going to give you an error because you copied the whole sheet. I copied the whole sheet. We copied the whole sheet, so you can't put it down there. So we're going to be up in A1, right click, and then paste it. And then I would zoom it back into that 150 down here. So zoom it back into the 150. Then I typically see if it fits on a page by going to the second tab and then see if it's in the page layout. It looks like it fits on a page. Back to the first tab. That looks pretty good. So now we have the comparative and we have this one. This first one I don't want anymore. So I'm going to go back to that first tab. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to delete that one because I don't want it. And then I'm going to delete it. And then we can print these two on one PDF file, right? So I can print these two things on one PDF file. So also note, I did some kind of funny things with the formatting here. So like if I scroll down, here's the summary balance sheet. You can wrap the text that way, or maybe you want to expand, this column so that you could fit the summary balance sheet in it, something like that, and then you can format it a little bit. So there might be some little tweaks that you can do in the formatting here as you pull this information over. But in any case, there it is. So I'm going to save it like that, and then I'm going to go to the File tab. I'm going to print it to one PDF file. So we're going to say Print. I'm using the Qt PDF printer to do this. So you need a PDF printer writer. It's a free download if you use your favorite browser to search Qt PDF printer. I'm not affiliated with them at all, but I downloaded it a long time ago, and it's free, and I've used it a long time, and it's been really helpful. So I would do that, and then I would go down here and then go to the print the entire worksheet. So now we got 2 pages. So there's the 2 pages. And then we're going to go ahead and print that. It's going to ask where we want to put it. And then I'm going to put it to this one. I got section 2. We're on section 2 with the balance sheet. And I'm going to call it balance sheet reports. That's the one we want. And then that's going to show up in this folder because that's where we just told it to go. Now we can give this to somebody. I can give somebody an email with the 2 reports on it, or I can give them one attachment, by making another folder and calling this balance sheet, not with a capital, sheet reports. I'm losing my voice, sorry. And then I can pull the balance sheet into there, and I can pull the comparative balance sheet into there. And and then I can have one attachment by right-clicking on this and compressing it. So I can send it to a compressed file, and I can send just this one attachment. So that could be nicer way to give it to somebody who may not even open it. They're just kind of want the report, just to know that we're doing stuff over here. And then we're going to open this up. It's like, we're just still here. We're still around. We'll be here for you at year end when you really care about, the numbers, or the quarter end or the month end. And then if you open it up this way, you can attach this as well. And this will have the 2 reports in it. It's only got the 1 report here. What happened? I put the wrong one in here. So if I go back in here, the balance sheet reports is this one. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to cut that one and remove it from there. Go back over here. I'm going to paste it here. That's the one with the 2, and then I'm going to put this back into this folder. All right, so this is the one that has the 2 reports on it. So then you can give this one attachment to somebody else, and again, that might be the easiest way to just give someone the 2 reports, easiest for the receiver of the reports, to have one file that they could just save somewhere rather than have multiple attachments or some kind of zipped file, which they could have problems opening or saving or whatever.